It's time to get serious. It's time for Radio X. Radio X with your host, Jimmy X.
Radio X. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Radio X. I am your guest host, Popeye from FederalJack.com. Sitting in for Jimmy X today. He's feeling a little under the weather, so he's getting some much-needed rest. Hanging out with my good friend, Jules. Jules, say hello.
Hello.
And today we're just going to be discussing some of the news from the past week. I'm going to get into the whole Penn State thing. No, I'm not going to talk about defending Penn State or you know, anything like that. I'm going to get into how disgusting I think it is that Penn State and its alumni and the students and everything are more upset about a coach losing his job than they are about children being molested for years and years and years. So we'll get into that and other things. Anybody feels like calling up and calling in, you guys can reach us at 1-866-841-1065. Again, that's 866-841-1065. Feel free to call in and tell us how you feel about the whole Penn State thing and about people being more worried about a stupid football coach and a stupid game of football or a college's reputation rather than the evil that the people that were in charge at that university covered up. And now since this, all these other universities are coming out. And there's been articles where all these other universities are now coming out and saying, well, we had this problem or we had that problem. It's disgusting. It is absolutely 110% disgusting. Blech. More worried about football than worried about kids that got molested. But that's Sandusky, Popeye. He's a legend. He should be locked up. Actually, the dirty bastard should be taken out to the woodshed and hung. But that's my personal opinion. I think if you touch,
should have happened 10 years ago.
I think if you touch kids, then you should be held responsible accordingly. You know, and I don't mean if you're just accused of it, but I mean if you're really known, if somebody like this, in this case, they had somebody, an eyewitness. And what did they say? And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, now joining us is JJ Inc. from the Orion Talk Radio Network over on, he's got a radio show over there called The Against the Wall. And JJ, you and I have been talking about this off air for the past couple of days. What do you think about this whole Penn State thing?
Well, you know, the worst thing about it is 10 years ago these allegations started coming out. Even the people whose children were saying this. Paterno is a god in Pennsylvania there, and
you were telling me people will slash tires for talking crap about Penn State and Joe Paterno.
Yes, absolutely.
Sickening.
Yeah.
Sickening. Don't bother to slash tires because Paterno raped little boys. No, Sandusky raped little boys. Slash tires because Paterno gets fired, or flip over a news van and have a riot because Joe Paterno gets fired. Let's not riot that they molested little boys for years and hid it from everybody.
No, it'd be one thing if it was like they saw the guy in the shower, you know, even if it was, you know, anything except for performing oral sex. I mean, how can you not? How can you look at that and go, oh, well, maybe he was checking for, you know.
Yeah, he was checking the kid's temperature.
You know, may have hyperextended himself or something.
Sandusky should be hung, dude. I'm sorry. Pedophiles and stuff like that and rapists, I have no love for. They should take him out to the woodshed and give him the what for. All right, we're going to break. First segment's always a short segment. We're back in a few minutes. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. Listen to Radio X. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Radio X. I'm your guest host, Popeye from FederalJack.com. Apparently, there's a prosecutor back in, what was it, 2003, I think it was, first started to investigate this, and then he just up and disappeared. Gone.
He disappeared. They found his notebook with the hard drive missing. But
No,
they
that's
never
not
found
shady.
him. No.
That's not shady. No body, no nothing. Probably ended up chopped up into a can of 55-gallon drum of acid.
Yeah, or a chipper shredder.
Yep, that'll do it. That would. The only problem is you got to clean the teeth out of the chipper shredder. That's how a guy got caught killing his wife. He rented a chipper, threw his wife through it, and then returned it without cleaning it. What was the deal? You were telling Jules. Tell the listeners what you were telling me and Jules during the break about because you know more about the prosecutor and everything. What happened to this dude?
His name was Jonathan Luna.
Jonathan Luna, and he was the prosecutor going after.
No, he was hold on, that was a different prosecutor. The prosecutor for the case in I think I was getting too mixed up. The district attorney that chose not to prosecute Sandusky disappeared
After he chose not to go after him, is what you're saying?
Yeah, he went missing in 2005.
So it was 05. Okay, I thought it was 2003. So it was 05.
No, all they found was his car and a laptop with the hard drive missing.
And how long after he had looked into what was going on did he?
Well, it was like 7 years later. But the thing of it is it could be a coincidence. But the thing is why would they take his hard drive? And maybe it was after he was getting ready to come out and say, wait, we need to prosecute. Because you're talking about a foundation that's getting millions of dollars. The Second Mile Foundation, they get millions of dollars.
That was Sandusky's thing, right? That was the thing that he used to get the little kids in.
Yes.
His own little personal foundation for children.
Yeah,
you ever notice these sick pricks do that? They always start some charity to like a, it's like a mousetrap. Come here. We'll give you some free cheese. Come here, little mousey, and then whack. A big piece of metal clamps down on you, and that's it. You're done. Same thing with this dirty bastard. Ugh. I have a disdain for child touchers and pedophiles.
Yeah, don't we all?
It's just disgusting. And I just don't understand the logic behind these people that are rioting. They rioted at Penn State the other night, like a couple thousand students, because they fired Paterno. Because he knew about this and didn't do anything. Well, he went to Popeye, he did the right thing. He went to the Penn State staff, and they didn't do anything. And Paterno didn't do anything. If he knew that kids were being raped, if he knew that he had done it before, obviously Sandusky's going to do it again. Okay? And now all these inside little things come out. People are like, oh, you always knew to stay away from Sandusky because he was a little weird or a little creepy at times. So everybody had this vibe about him. But nobody, and there was actual witnesses to where he sodomized the 10-year-old boy in the shower. Let me tell you something. The guy that witnessed it, he's a turd, okay? At the time, he was a quarterback. He was like 6 foot, 6'4", something like that. He had no physical fear of Sandusky. He was younger than him. He could have probably snapped his neck. Sandusky was in a weak position. He's naked. And this guy witnesses it and doesn't do anything, and this turd still works.
There's no excuse for that.
He still works at Penn State, this guy.
Right over it.
They had to take him off the sidelines for the last game that they played yesterday because apparently the guy got so many death threats for not doing anything about Sandusky, raping little kids.
Yeah,
that he feared for his safety on the field. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Hopefully he has to move and get a new identity.
It's a lot more people involved than just that, I guarantee, because what I just told you, the kids for cash, the whole thing, it's a whole pedophilia ring out there everywhere where you find pedophilia. You have your little lone pedophiles, the ones that they get caught and that we know about. But when you look
the
at
stuff
that,
they do isn't anything compared to what Cheney and the rest
judges
of
and lawyers and $1 million foundation folks on that sex watch or the pedophile list you can get in your local area. No, but yeah, all the time we hear about it.
Well, it's always, it could be your neighbor, JJ. It could be your neighbor. No, I'm more worried about these people in positions of power.
Yes.
I suggest people go read The Transformation of America by Kathy O'Brien and Mark Phillips. I suggest you go read Thanks for the Memories by Bryce Taylor. Okay? And go research Project Monarch and these mind control programs. Research what MK Ultra started off as. Okay? All this stuff is important because it all goes back to this. I mean, Mark Passio has been a guest on my show. He's a host here on Oracle. He's been a guest on my radio show over on the Orion Talk Radio Network. And he's done plenty of shows with me about Satanism and stuff. And Mark has said time and time again that it's not, these gothic kids or some crackhead in an alleyway. It's doctors, lawyers, judges, police chiefs, fire chiefs, politicians, DAs. These are the high-ranking people involved. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to break. We'll be right back. How is it okay to touch kids? As long as it's a football coach. What's next? It's okay to touch kids because the guy's a Hollywood actor?
Or a priest?
I mean, that's what's going on. People need to wake up. It's not a surprise that Sandusky's involved in this. Not at all. When it first happened, I said, I guarantee you this goes much deeper. And it does. It does. It goes way deeper. This isn't a fluke thing. This isn't something, I'm surprised. I'm surprised that a man of power rapes little boys. The horror. He must be an evil person. No, man, this goes deeper than that.
I can't even comprehend it, really.
It's really hard. You have to understand. I mean, Ted Gunderson talked a lot about this in the 90s. Satanic ritual abuse. Then the FBI came out and said that it doesn't exist. People are making it up. Satanic ritual abuse is fake. I mean, they came out with the False Memory Foundation.
I was just reading about that, actually.
Yeah, it's all crap.
In Pennsylvania. In fact, it's alleged that that's exactly where Mengele came when they brought him here, was straight to Pennsylvania, and to begin straight into the animal conditioning of essentially us, how to control behavior of animals. We are animals.
Well, Anti-Tyranny News in the chat room brought up a good point. They said DynCorp, same thing. We're paying contractors to kidnap little boys and bring them over to Afghanistan for sex parties with members of the Afghan military and Afghan police. And it's okay because hey, let's get mad at the wiki leaker that leaked it out rather than getting mad at the government for using our tax dollars to subsidize child rape. But hey, let's not get mad at the child rape part.
Well, they talked about it like it was a black guy for foreign policy, but no big deal.
A black eye for foreign policy. Right. Well, all these foreign politicians aren't going to want to hear what the United States has to say. They're going to hate us. They're not going to like us. They're going to think, well, we can't trust these U.S. politicians. Look what they say. How about paying attention to the important stuff instead of the bickering between politicians or whether or not Hillary Clinton actually thinks a politician in another country is a scumbag or not? Like, I didn't already know that. Like, I didn't already know that she's an evil bimbo. Okay? No, I didn't know that at all. I don't need some stupid WikiLeaks to tell me that. I want you guys to focus on the real stuff. The pedophiles, the child rape. But let's not pay attention to that because, hey, contractors are a huge, important part of this war of terror. I mean, war on terror.
There's two things that I want to know. Is why, Jimmy's show a couple weeks ago, they were talking about all the new sex ed that they're going to be doing in schools for kids, right? Teaching them stuff that kids shouldn't even know about. But why aren't they teaching kids like how to look out for pedophiles? Why aren't they teaching kids what you should do if some pedophile tries to abduct you or
because they're too busy trying to teach you about they're too busy teaching the kids about scat play and things that they shouldn't even be considering or thinking about, and they're too busy teaching these kids all about drugs. Hey, here comes the dare cop.
Because they hyped up, dude. because there isn't. I mean, to listen to the news and to listen to the cops, why we got to have police in every on every campus in America. You'd think that there were just millions of mad pedophiles running around, but they're not running around with trench coats. They're sitting at the CPS. They're sitting, in their judges' chambers or their, $1 billion mansion or whatever. That's where the real pedophiles are. But they want us to believe that, every white van could have a child molester in it. Well, every judge, dude, I spent so much time in youth facilities when I was a kid, and I saw so much abuse that I just don't trust any of them.
But that doesn't happen, JJ. Come on.
No,
that just happens once in a while. Come on, those are rare cases. It's not like
I
that.
actually did I ran away from a group home, and then I had some counselors there that were willing to testify for me, and I took them to court. I sued them for child abuse, and I ended up at the state school for boys for that. They dropped it. They said, I was just a 14-year-old kid and, a delinquent, and they sent me to the lockup. Never heard from me for another 2 years. And that place is still open.
Wow. Of course it is. How about the 2 Florida judges?
They fired the 2 guys that went in to testify with me.
How about the Florida judges that just got arrested a couple months back, where the mother publicly, like right in front of the cameras and everything. I guess he was walking out of the courtroom or wherever the hell he was walking out of, and she called him a scumbag. Right in front of all the news cameras, she went off on him because her son killed himself because that judge had sent him to one of these boot camps for the horrible crime of being at a party. Kid wasn't doing anything. He was a straight A student, honor student, everything else. And then when he came out of boot camp, he killed himself. So whatever happened to him there was so traumatic that he couldn't deal with it. And he killed himself.
Dude, and they know how to pick and choose. It wasn't guys. I faced different. I never really had that kind of a problem. I made it be known, if you touch me, I'm going to stab you right in your neck.
That's good.
But there's a lot of kids there, that weren't like that. My point is they shouldn't have been there, and half the population in prison shouldn't be there. They're nonviolent people and those are the ones that get preyed upon. By the time I was 16, I was already, are you kidding me? I had already been bodybuilding for 2 years. I was ready to fight toe to toe with anybody at the drop of a hat. So, I wasn't the kind of guy that they messed with. But, the kid that everybody else messed with, those are the ones, and then they disappear. See, when you're in foster care or you're in custody of Department for Youth or the Division for Youth or Social Services anywhere, you can disappear more deeply than witness protection. They literally can make you just disappear where you can't be contacted by anybody, period.
They disappear you into some black hole somewhere you never heard from again.
And it's so easy because everybody just goes, yeah, well, his parents were probably crackheads or, they're urban, inner city filth. Who cares? But it doesn't matter where you live or how your situation is or how much money you have coming in. If you're a mother or a father and you love your children and the state comes and takes them away, that's freaking devastating. It doesn't matter if you're freaking rich, driving a BMW, or you're taking a bus to Burger King to work your shift. That devastates your family.
And they don't care. That's part of it.
That's
part of this, JJ. Remember, the ultimate goals of these people are to destroy the family. And when I say these people, I mean these elitist morons. These Satanists, they all understand. The people that actually do take part of ritual sacrifice and stuff, they understand what the Satanist goal is.
Yeah, they're not grabbing a guy that's going to try to shank him with a pen in the side of his neck. That's not the kids they're going after.
So is that what we should be teaching our kids?
Yeah.
No, they go after weak children.
Touch you, grab the nearest thing you can find and stick it in their eyeball or their neck. That's what I teach my kids. Don't let anybody.
You got to teach your kid to defend themselves. Stand by right there, JJ. We're going to break. When we come back on the other side, we'll get into some phone calls. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to go to the call lines here. And the first thing I'm going to do is go to Richard in Oklahoma because he's been waiting the longest. Richard, you there, buddy?
Yeah.
How's it going?
Oh, not too bad. Let me start off with saying that 800,000 kids disappear every year. And then the governor of Pennsylvania, at the time he was an attorney general, he knew about it. The FBI knew about it. The police knew about it. And like you guys say, it goes deeper than that. The people that run Penn State knew about it. You know, football players knew about it. All these people need to be taken somewhere, waterboarded, and then to find out how far it really goes. And then the next thing is, like I said, it's sick. You know, well, anyway.
Oh, I agree. I can hear the frustration in your voice when you think about it. That's how I feel, the same way. It's so repulsive and disgusting because you are a human being, okay? Rich, you care about people. That's why you have feelings and empathy and morals. That's why this crap bothers you. These people that take part in this stuff, they don't care about that. They don't feel that stuff. That's the sick part. That's one of the worst parts in my eyes because they don't even have any empathy. And when they go to court, when they get caught, they give you that fake, "Oh, I'm sorry." You're sorry you got caught, scumbag.
Like I said, the governor of Pennsylvania, who's governor now, he knew about all this.
I know. It's disgusting, and he should be held accountable just like Sandusky. All of them. Anybody that is involved in covering this up and didn't do anything about him needs to be held accountable. But then when you look into it, that's when you realize that this is part of a much larger thing, you know,
yeah,
and that's why it always gets covered up.
The worst thing of all is it's the innocent people. I mean, you know, granted it's a you know, program for troubled youth, but you're talking about, listen, a 14-year-old boy is just a child, man. You know, people think that, you know, no, they're a man now. You know, back 100 years ago, he'd be chopping hay, and well, which is true, but he wouldn't be making decisions about the farm. You know what I mean? At 14, you're still just a child.
Yeah, and another thing too is you got to ask yourself, why is all this stuff coming out now? There's something else that's trying to be hidden with all this stuff coming out.
Of course. And obviously, if it came out and they're doing damage control, you know, so they'll allow him to be used.
Yeah, the media knew about all this.
Of course they did. There's people involved in the media that go to these rituals and take part in this and know about this stuff. That's why it amazes me when people actually buy into the mainstream media anymore.
Yeah, and when you say something about it, they're like, no way.
Dude, it just amazes me how people can't see this.
Rings. And if they are child pedophile rings, it's like they always assume it's like, you know, a BOCES teacher and, you know, it's a pedophile ring like that, like 3 or 4 regular residential people that live in the area have this little kiddie porn ring going on. No, what you're talking about is a global market for children.
Yeah. Yeah, it goes, like I said, 800,000 kids in the United States alone go missing.
It's disgusting, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've said that out loud to people before, and they look at me and go, Popeye, do you have your numbers correct? Are you sure? Are you sure that's not the world? And I'm like, no, in the United States. I'm like, we have over 300 million people in the United States.
Let me tell you guys something real quick. From the age of 13 until I was almost 30, but specifically till I was 16, I would go to foster homes, and I'd run away. And there are a lot of, first of all, there are a lot of runaways, and you have just disappeared. And then once you're on the streets, and this isn't even talking about the kids that disappear just into the memory hole of facility to facility to facility, and nobody knows where they are. I'm talking about runaways, people under 16 that run away and live on the streets, and I know there's hundreds of them in every city, at least minimum, because I've been there to, you know, not all the cities across America, but I'm coast to coast, baby. I've been all over this country.
And those are a lot of the kids, JJ, that get scooped up, like Rich was talking about, and they get, you know, they're part of this 800,000 because now no one cares that they're on the street. So they just get scooped up, and one day they disappear, and they end up over in the Middle East or Europe somewhere, or excuse me, Europe somewhere as a sex slave. And that's what happens.
Yeah.
Or out in Kazakhstan or one of these Uzbekistan or one of the stands out there. It's disgusting. Well, Rich, I got to let you go because I got a bunch of other calls on the line, but I want to thank you for calling in. Is there anything else you wanted to say real quick?
No, that's it.
Cool. Well, thank you much for calling in, and stay tuned to the rest of the program. All right, guys, let's go to Mike in New York. Mike, are you there, buddy?
Hi, thank you for taking my call. I wanted to talk about the topic you guys are talking about. This is just a chip off the iceberg of a much chip off a little ice piece of of the iceberg. But this problem is global. It's been around for a very long time. Very recently, I would say since you started seeing even other cases that may seem non-related, like John Benet Ramsey. Even to even the most recent Herman Cain, where he's got allegations against him. This is all just, if you research this type of stuff, this is the quickest way you go down the track to find where the elite are really what they're really doing. People like Barney Frank, who in the 70s got caught, and basically what he said is, "I'll start naming names," and he's allowed to stay in position to this day. So this is just part of the global network, but I do see there is something out there trying to get, these cases stirred up, and more recent. So there might be a positive element to why we're seeing some of these things pop up, and then maybe, if we research all the names and how the names are connected and where they are in the cases, you might be able to find a bigger link.
I agree. That's why they're going to use Sandusky, and they're going to crucify him, and they're going to act like it was an isolated case, and anything. I'll be surprised, honestly, if it makes it to trial. I won't be surprised because he's old. He's in his late 60s. I won't be surprised if Sandusky suddenly has a quote-unquote heart attack.
You could be correct, or, if we can't find him, as well. He can end up on the missing list as well.
All his hard drives missing.
This is again a much larger picture. It's finding because the quickest most of the elites that are on the highest level usually go down these paths in life. They make decisions, and this is the outcome of what they do. You can go the Franklin cover-up Franklin case is also a good alley to research and see how what names are really being talked about in these cases, and nothing's being going on. No one's being prosecuted. Names like Reagan and Bush and things like that. And
I agree.
And it goes all the way up to the highest levels. That we can
I
see
agree.
in
That's
in our
another good
normal
book
government.
and a movie. You can see the film on YouTube, but I think you should get the book. I have a copy of the book. It's kind of hard to find, but there have been of the original, but you can get a couple reprints. Doesn't matter. Get your hands on that book. Mike is 100% correct. That book will disgust you, but you need to understand what really goes on. And everybody goes, what do they have on these politicians? How do they control them? This is the kind of crap they have on them.
Listen, man, you should never be caught having oral sex with a boy in a locker room anywhere in America.
Well,
more than once. It should only happen once.
Janet Reno, okay, and she's not even a congressperson or a politician, little critter, okay. She worked for Clinton, and Reno, real quick, when she was down here in Miami, she was the district attorney for Miami, and the drug cartels and stuff. She would never screw with them because they had video and photos of her doing coke in the back of a limo with an underage girl. So she played ball. Okay, that's how it works. The mafia had the same thing on Hoover. Why do you think he went to Congress and said there's no such thing as organized crime? Because they had pictures of him with Clyde Tolson, his right-hand man, and apparently his left-hand man as well. Okay, and that's how they did things. Mike, we're going to break, so if you want to hang out, you're more than welcome to hang out into the next segment. Just sit right there, stay tuned.
Thank you.
Listeners, We'll be right back in a few minutes. Don't go anywhere. We got a bunch of more callers on the line too. Callers, stay there. I'll get right to you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back for the final segment of the first hour of Radio X. I'm going to go back to the call-in lines. We got about 10 minutes, so I'm going to squeeze in the last 3 calls here. Let me go back to Mike in New York because he got cut off by the break. Mike, you still with me, buddy?
Yes, thank you.
So what else did you want to get into?
No, well, I just wanted to say the road to fixing this is where, as a society, a citizen of the United States, where do we draw a line in the sand as our moral fabric? Where do we say enough is enough? When do we stop supporting these sports stars, these entertainment stars? Because you know what? They all go down the same road. They all go down the road of selling their entire being, their soul, their everything to whatever materialistic thing that they're just owned. That's all they are. Instead of a society of people growing up and developing who they are as a person and growing in touch, and having a connection with who they are and understanding why they're here, instead of idolizing somebody else's life. So I'd just like to say that, and let's try and think about that. Thank you.
That's very powerful. Yeah. Wow. I agree. That's a powerful message.
And, that's a good question. When are good men, when do we, as good men, as good fathers, as good husbands, as good, friends to other people, when are we going to get together and start saying, listen, locally in our own communities even, and just say, this madness has to stop, little by little.
That's where it starts, JJ. You just hit the nail right on the head. Communities. Get with your neighbors. Go make friends with your neighbors. Well, I don't really talk to my neighbor, Popeye. They just moved in a couple months ago. So stop being a dick and go say hello.
Yeah.
Introduce yourself. If they're rude, they don't want to get to know you, fine. But at least get to know some of your neighbors. Become friends with them. Yeah. Organize something once a month where you all get together and have dinner. Get to know each other. Build that bond. Because when the crap hits the fan, you're going to require that bond. JJ talks about this all the time on his show. When you talk about how, a lot of your neighbors, and it's not going to be the guy, just because you're friends with somebody 3,000 miles away, that's awesome. But when all hell breaks loose, he's 3,000 miles away. He's not next door. So you're going to need to know the person next door. And I think you hit the nail right on the head, JJ. You have to build community, because that's how we're going to fix this. That's what their whole goal is, to destroy that. And to destroy that bond and that humanity we have with each other. This is what the New World Order wants to do. And I think the only way to beat it is to start at that level and work outwards. And it'll be it'll be like what do you call it? Like an immovable object. They won't be able to overcome it, because it'll be built on love and truth and humanity and knowledge, wisdom. That's how we're going to defeat this. And it all starts at home, community, getting out, getting to know your neighbors, and then sitting down and maybe having a screening of a quote-unquote truth movie, or whatever it happens to be, whether it's health, food, 9/11, the Federal Reserve, everything. Everybody's got a doorway to get in and wake them up. So I think you hit the nail right on the head, JJ. Way to go.
You break up a big family. You break up a community. I'll say this, all right? Individually, we're outnumbered. One man standing tall, like the little mouse flipping off the eagle as it comes to rip its talon on him. That's great, and that's defiance and all that, and that I stand for that. That's the way I've been all my life. But together, we so outnumber them. Individually, your neighbors will watch the SWAT team come kick your door and burn your house down, and just close the shades and say, "Oh, dear God, thank God that wasn't me or us or our children."
But eventually, it will be you. That's why you need to stand up.
And that's why I say, if I lived on a street where all of us were at least sort of on the same page, where we all knew each other and liked each other, and we looked out for each other's properties. If their pets wander in each other's yard, rather than shoot them, we bring them back. You have less chance of going door. going door to door anywhere on my street without, us knowing. If, for instance, you were asking about me, I would know within 2 or 3 houses.
I agree. It all starts at the local level. Mike, I appreciate you calling in with that point, man. Thank you very much. I'm going to go to Dave in Montana. Dave, are you there?
Yes. How you doing?
How's it going, buddy?
All right, good. 800,000 kid missing thing. Something like 94% of them are found within an hour, and then like over half of them left is like a family thing, like the father takes the kid or the mother takes the kid. And then it comes down to like there's only like 115 children that are actually like real kidnapped for demands, ransoms, and the person don't know them. It's so there's they just throw that number out there without really explaining it. If you look into it, because that freaked me out the first time I heard that. So I looked into it, and that's just the big number.
Well, what he was getting
out.
at is not the statistics that they give out, like the government gives out or anything. We're talking about the statistics of children that actually do go missing, not the inflated
I'm looking at it
numbers.
right here. It says like 797,500 children.
That's
younger than
disgusting.
18. But
That's
listen,
700,000 families that don't know.
No, they're found within an hour. 97% of them are found within an hour. Then there's like 200,000 of them left over, and those half of them are like the father has them or the mother takes them.
Well, 200,000.
But the ones
like
that you're
20%.
talking about, the real mean stuff that's going on, 115 of them.
No, there's more than 115,000.
1,000 in Florida alone.
Yeah, trust me.
But they're all family stuff. It's all family stuff. Like the father got ripped off into custody, so they take them or whatever.
The state workers, the Department of Children and Families here, they lose children. I believe the little girl's name, you could look her up, her name was Rhea Wilson. They lost her back in like 2003, 2004.
Because there's so many foster parents.
No.
And that's a whole industry in itself.
She wasn't with foster parents. She was in the care of the state. A lot
of the states will hire foster families to take care of them.
No, it wasn't a state family. It wasn't a state family. You don't get it. It was a state worker in a government car, government agency employee, driving the girl. And the little girl disappeared. And you know what? The only thing the woman got charged with at the time was DUI. Never got in trouble. No one ever, well, we don't know where she went. And they just dropped the ball and let it go. That happens all the time. The only stuff that gets reported most of the time are little white kids. But when they're the Spanish kids or the black kids or an Asian kid, unless the kid comes from a family that has money, those kids don't make it on the news all the time. That's why every time they make a big deal, it's like it's Kaylee Anthony because she had blonde hair and blue eyes. And I'm not saying that it's a
I agree,
but it doesn't get the hits. Okay, it does. They feel, these scumbag people in the media, whatever their reasons are, they don't give attention to that. So the real numbers of children that go missing are completely skewered. You know what I'm saying? The government's official,
right. And it's all a big guess.
Government's official numbers they send out are BS. But that doesn't include the kids that aren't getting reported missing. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. It's all
true, but 800,000. That's a lot. But I know there's thousands and thousands of children that disappear every year that don't get found.
Of course there is.
Don't get reported.
We're back for hour number 2 of Radio X. The first segment is always a short segment, so I'm going to go back to the phones really quick. I'm going to bring up Richard in Washington. Richard, are you with me?
Yes, great show. And I really kind of wanted to broaden a little bit. Melody had a show yesterday, and she brought on a lady from the Gulf. And that I called in, and that was kind of my question. Here we have a whole series of communities that are being totally invaded with kind of an attack on their livelihood, etc. And yet there's no real community involvement as far. I mean, there is some, but I'm saying there's no outright uprising as to attacking BP and or the powers that be and or trying to alleviate the situation by a mass arising of the people. So I think your kind of approach of we got to get community involvement is definitely something we have to push. We have to really emphasize and mention every time, because if we don't get the community involvement, the local level involvement, I think we're pretty much gone.
I agree. It starts at a local level, and that's how we're going to fix it, because you're not going to be able to fix it from the top down, obviously, because they're all bought and paid for. So the only way we're going to fix it is from the bottom up. And the first thing we need to do is build that strong foundation. You can't have a good, sturdy house with a crappy foundation. So we need to build that community foundation first. And it doesn't mean be collectivist idiots either, but individually come together and meet the other individuals in your community, and get to know them and appreciate them for their quirks, or, don't be so judgmental of people, It's one of the things that they feed off of, they being the New World Order, these elitists, social engineers. They require us to have disdain for each other and be petty with each other. Otherwise, we're going to realize that we all have the same things in common, and we have nothing in common with them. And they don't want that. So they always push, materialism. It's more important to, what kind of car you have. Don't talk to your neighbor. Your neighbor, that's sketchy. That's not popular. That's not the trendy thing to do. The trendy thing is to call the police on your neighbor because, hey, he could be a terrorist now. They push this separation purposely because they know that at the base of it, community will destroy their New World Order.
Exactly. And secondarily, I think we have to really observe and question our leaders, because it seems to me in every community there are leaders that have gotten that status, and then they're given special passes because they've got to be where they are. We have to take away this caste system that has really developed in America, even though this is supposed to be the quote unquote nation of the free, and really bring all forces to bear against the people that we put up in this caste perspective, and regain our individuality and our equity as far as individuals.
I agree, Rich. I agree 110%, because people that get special treatment, they start to think that I'm above the law, I'm this, I'm that. No. I think that they should be, these politicians should be held to the same standards as regular civilians, I'm doing air quotes, okay, regular citizens or whatever you want to call them. That way they will, behave more. We're going to break, so Rich, if you want to stay on and hang out to the next segment, you're more than welcome. We'll be back in a few minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned. This is Radio X. I'm your guest host, Popeye, from federaljack.com. I'm going to go right back to the phones because I was hanging out with Richard in Washington and he got cut off by the break. So let me bring him back up here. Richard, are you with me?
Yes, I am. And just to kind of tie this all together and bring in a little of the conversation that was off air, what we need to do in our communities is find like-minded people and associate with those people. We don't have to know everybody and really associate with everybody, because there's some people in the percentage of the population that you don't want to include in this kind of together group, this cohesive group. They're just going to fraction and divide the group. So what you want to do is get a community of like-minded people so that you can operate as a body to institute whatever you need to improve the community and expel the people that are really bringing the negative energy into it. That's kind of my approach as to how I deal with my community. And with a little luck, you can then tie in maybe the sheriff that has the jurisdictional power in the thing and get an appropriate person in that slot. And essentially, this is kind of what the constitutional approach was. They had the militia that would be able to fight in the local community to protect the individuals and maintain the sovereignty of that community. I think we need to get back to the good old time religion, as they say, and bring in the organizations and the mindset of our founding fathers.
Start clanning up, buddy.
I agree.
Yeah, me too.
That's
So
how.
anyway, keep up with the good show, and thanks a lot for the info.
Thanks a lot for calling in, Rich. I appreciate it. Great call.
Take care.
Great call. All right. We have one more call I'm going to go to. Let me see. It's a private caller. Let me bring him up here. Private caller, are you there?
Yes, I am.
And what did you want to discuss today?
Well, let me just say I'm a first-time caller, long-time listener. I wanted to talk about this form of community that we live in currently, where people don't talk to their neighbors. People don't really care to get involved. If you mention that the person's drinking fluoride in their water fountain, they want to beat the crap out of you. Unfortunately, I got into it the other day. I may have told the story on air before, with some guy who was drinking water out of a water fountain. I said, hey, there's fluoride in that water. How do you feel about that? I was just trying to get a gauge on whether or not he was aware of that. And he looks at me, and he says, are you... He starts to get all verklempt, and he starts to get a little shaky. Like, I have this effect on people. People start twitching, when I start bringing up things. I've done it all my life, so I thought it was nothing normal. But he gets so agitated, and he says, who are you? What do you care? Blah, 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 or whatever he said. And I swear to God, this guy was going to beat the crap out of me. Why? Because I told him there was poison in his water. Last time I checked, it was common decency to tell your neighbor his house is on fire, or to tell the guy, hey, you might not want to eat that. There's some sort of deadly poison in there. Last time I checked. But the world we live in today, no. Don't talk about anything. We don't want to rustle any feathers. Everything's too taboo to touch. Don't touch anything with a 10-foot pole, and that's it.
Caller, you sound like a really good friend of mine that I know. His nickname is the Phantom of the radio network.
Mm-hmm.
Would you happen, right? Yeah, would you happen to know Bob Tuscan at all?
I do know Bob very well.
Ah, you sound like you guys could hang out.
Yeah. Oh,
we're very close.
Was it Jules? Luxurious. Very.
Yeah, you sound like you know him very well, Bob.
How did you just say, JJ?
He was talking about your luxurious fro.
Luscious. Or luxurious. I said luscious.
It's a little creepy, JJ, just so you know.
Now, to be honest, I don't talk to my neighbors because I don't want them to know who I am.
Don't you talk to your neighbors when they're making too much noise or something, though? Don't you, like...
Well, I wanted to talk to my neighbor the other night on air. I kept hearing her microwave go off, and I've realized that the neighbor who lives next to me in my Bob Tuscan studio apartment, that is, she uses the microwave an awful lot. And I haven't used the microwave in years. I think it's garbage. But she's constantly using the microwave. I mean, this chick must eat 15,000 Hot Pockets a day.
And they play crappy music, too, because I've heard that through the walls before.
Hey.
I've been on the phone with you, and you hear, crappy, horrible music coming through the wall. So I feel for you.
So I almost wanted to go talk to her, Popeye, and say, hey, I'm the neighbor next door, and I'm not nosy. I really could care less. But the frequencies, these EMPs from the microwave are really starting to make me wonder, are you just frying yourself? I mean, what are you thinking? And again, she probably would call the cops on me. This is the world we live in. She'd probably mace me at the front door. Okay? And so on.
You frighten her, Bob. That's why. I mean, she would probably be like, "Oh my God, he came at me. He was trying to tell me that microwaves were bad for me." Don't worry, we'll take this felon to jail, ma'am. You're in jail with like murderers. They're like, "What are you in jail for?" And you're like, "Well, I was trying to tell a woman not to microwave her food." Well, that's why we need to get together as a community, because that's the wedge they're driving.
Okay.
You have certain sections of cities and areas where it's sketchy. Look at L.A. I'm not making fun of the people that live there, but L.A., you know, people don't talk to each other there. They're like, everybody's shady. Everybody's kind of, they lie to each other about stuff. You know, South Beach, Florida is the same way. Ugh.
Yeah.
Can't stand it. You know, get to know your neighbor if you can.
I think there's some value to that.
Yes.
You also want to get to know your neighbors, because when the grid goes down and we see our food being rationed to us by the military and people start to get hungry, you're really going to want to know your neighbors, and you're going to want to know that they're getting prepared. So that's why I urge everyone in my community to get prepared, regardless of your political persuasion. Just get prepared, because I don't want you knocking on my door. My heart would break if I had one of my neighbors knocking on my door. Hey, Bob, my little son is very hungry. Can I just get some food? And I said, well, yeah, I can give you a cup of rice and a cup of beans, but after that, I don't know what you're going to do. I have to feed my family. And then the next day they come, hey, Bob, come on. And then they start to get a little bit more agitated, because when the crying kids are at home, when the crying kids are at home, what do you think people are going to do when their wife's getting agitated, the kids are crying, and there's no food on the table? What the hell do you think they're going to do?
They're going to come.
Beans, bullets, and Band-Aids.
They're going to come for your stuff. Look, you know what? Just Google, videos, or go on YouTube and look up videos from Black Friday and how people trample over each other for a sale on iPads. Just think about when there's no food and they're hungry and their reptilian brain is kicking in. That's going to be real interesting. Hanging out with me from the last segment is Bob Tuskin. What do you think about this whole Penn State thing, man? I want to get your take on this really quick. What do you think about these idiots at Penn State getting angry because, hey, they fired Joe Paterno?
Well, these are the things people need to get upset about, okay? Let alone the fact that the fractional reserve banking system is screwing us, that our food supply is totally messed up, let alone the fact that we're going to wars, creating false flag terrorism, let alone the fact that there's huge pedophile rings in which the powers that shouldn't be are complicit, let alone the fact that our planet is being sprayed with these dangerous aerosols. Put all of those aside, this is something people need to get mad about. And I'm glad people are mad as hell and not going to take it that this football coach got fired. Everybody listening to this program right now needs to understand the urgency of this situation. A longtime football coach, what was he, the coach for 40 years?
No, like 60-something years. 60-something years.
It's the revolution, Popeye. This is bigger than the Arab Spring. This is bigger than the Occupy movement. This might be the change that we've been looking for. We are change. We are hope. We are Joe Paterno.
I'm sorry. I was busy vomiting off air because I couldn't stand it anymore. I'm sorry. Ugh. I don't care if the guy was, there for 100 years, or if he was friends with Jesus Christ, if he knows the Pope, if he knows the secrets of the universe. I don't care.
He probably does know the Pope,
well,
Popeye.
actually,
He probably knows the Pope very well. And that's the point I was going to make, is that the Pope essentially did the same thing, okay?
But, hey,
he's
a Pope.
Yeah, he's the Pope. But listen, the Pope did the same thing. He did not report the pedophiles that were amongst him when he should have. He went to the church as Paterno went to the school. And look at the media coverage for this and compare it to what you heard about the Pope. Night and day, without a doubt.
Well, it's a cover-up to the core. And, of course, we fired the president and we fired Paterno. Yeah. How many people knew about it that you're not going to fire? What about that, again, that quarterback? What kind of turd are you? Well, I was afraid. You weren't afraid, you sissy. Ugh. Oh, it was Sandusky. We didn't want to mess with him. He's legendary,
They get that complex where they just bow down to authority figures.
Ugh.
In addition to that, I'm sure some blackmail was used because that's the name of the game. But again, I think for us to sit here and analyze the specifics of this case is feeding into exactly what they want. Maybe there's some connections here to the broader scope of what's taking place with the child trafficking rings. But really, Popeye, this is something that is so prevalent amongst these scumbags that we talk about. Think about it. If they could perpetrate a huge sacrifice for their occult BS on 9/11/2001 the way they did, have no doubt that that evil is filled with people that get off from molesting children. And I know that's awful to talk about. It is the most disgusting of things. But really, it is at the core of this scummery. Is that a word, scummery? I just made it.
Scumbaggery.
Scumbaggery. I mean, whatever the word is, it's aberrant behavior at its utmost. And we really need to analyze this. Popeye, I've interviewed people on my program who were involved with these rings, not as the perpetrators, but were the victims. And they will tell me, this trauma-based mind control is very tough to deal with. And one of the reasons why they get away with it is because it creates a schism in the brain of the victim that prevents them from being able to, in their normal lives, be in touch with those thoughts and what happened. Kathy O'Brien is one of the examples, Popeye, that we use time and time again of her trauma-based mind control, which led to this split personality disorder. And it's very tough, and I know that's hard for some to conceive, but it really is tough for these people. I mean, the human brain responds to trauma in a certain way, especially if they're multi-generational. And especially with some of the MK Ultra type programs, the Montauk Project, whether you believe in all the specifics of these programs, I think it's pretty clear that the compartmentalized effort of evil amongst our government, which literally breaks down to mean mind control, is very much involved with the total annihilation of all dignity through pedophilia.
Well, and there's also other reasons they do it. If anybody's ever read Ike's work on this, and other people have talked about this too, but Ike, he pointed this specifically in, I think it was The Biggest Secret, he talked about it. And I'm not saying you have to believe everything, Ike says either, but I mean, when he talks about the Satanism and stuff, he explains why they have a thing for little boys. And I said that to you the other night on your show, was how they do it because there's more intense pain for a boy than it is for a female. So it creates more of this energy that goes up their spine and shoots out of the base of their, the top of their spine, by the base of their, where the neck attaches to the skull. And they however they suck up this energy, whatever they do with it, they use it in part of their rituals, and that's what their thing is. And it's disgusting. And that's why they primarily feed on these young males. And I think it's atrocious. The reports that have, by all these people that have survived out of it, it's amazing when people, how did they survive? Blah, 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 blah. Well, there's so many thousands are killed each year. Why is it a big surprise that one person made it out? Because they would have killed her. You don't think they've tried? You don't think she's in hiding and it's impossible to get in touch with her for a reason?
Interesting. Well, there are a few people that they have taken out that I believe were inching closer to these pedophile rings. Sonny Bono is one of them. If you get into the specifics of that case, you'll see
investigating it wise? Like he was going to break it open?
He was getting into it, yeah. He was starting to, there's evidence that he was starting to look into it when he was in Congress, I believe. And then we have Hunter S. Thompson. Hunter S. Thompson's another person who I believe was starting to get into that and do research on that. I think there's a paper he was in the brinks of releasing. He was on the brink of releasing. And
then he killed himself and stuffed himself under garbage bags on the side of his house because that's what you do when you're dead.
Yes, he killed him. He suicided. He got suicided. And then the third one is the D.C. Madam, which went on Coast to Coast, AJ, and all the programs saying, I will not commit suicide. If I commit suicide, that something's up. I won't hurt myself nor others. And by the way, this disclaimer goes for myself as well. I will not commit suicide, and I know Popeye won't. I know we won't hurt anybody. But she happened to be suicided. Why? Because I think she may have been holding on to the link to what was really taking place, not just prostitutes for these scumbags, but the child trafficking rings.
She knew what was going on. She knew where some of the bodies were buried, and she had to go. She should have said something when she was on Coast to Coast and on AJ's show. She should have said
that's
something.
That's her best insurance policy.
You got
and
that
that's the other thing I was going to say, is that people that actually are outspoken about it and are true whistleblowers, for them to be taken out, that would only lend credibility to their stories. So that's one of the reasons why they're kept around. Hey, Popeye, are we going to take more phone calls in a moment? 866-841-1065?
Yes, sir. We're going to break, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be taking phone calls and come back on the other side of the break. Stay tuned. We're back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to the call board. Hanging out with Bob Tuskin, JJ Inc., and Jules. And let's go to New Jersey. Caller, New Jersey, you there?
I think you're trying to take Jane's call, right?
Yep. Jane, you there?
Yeah, are
go ahead,
you guys
Jane.
talking to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Jane.
I'm hearing what I call the Baltimore-Washington security zone corridor, because there's probably one of the greatest concentrations of spook institutions in this area than just about anywhere else in the country. NSA's 20 minutes down the road from me, Fort Meade, all these places where essentially the gangsters who run this country and who are pimping out our nation's children for their pleasure, this is how they run. This is where they run things from, at least from my point of view. I want to make an observation about this Penn State situation, because I see the typical pattern that occurs here is they circle the wagons, the establishment circles the wagons, and then they play the game of, oh, it's only one bad apple. It's only one guy, this guy Jerry Sandusky. He's the only pervert involved in this. And I wanted to put a fork in that from the word go, because it's becoming apparent as more facts dribble out about this Second Mile Foundation that Sandusky started, and that over the course of his career there, he was paid $500,000 to run, that essentially it was pimping children. There's a radio host up in Pittsburgh named Mark Madden who's written about this in the past. And on Thursday morning, just a few hours after Paterno was fired, and after the university president, Graham Spanier, or Spanier, however his name is pronounced, after he was fired by the school's board of trustees in basically what amounts to a damage control operation, Madden was asked on the Dennis and Callahan show, a radio talk show, what he believes the next big piece of news about this is going to be. And what he said, I think, was twice as shocking as anything that's been released so far. He says, quote, "I can give you a rumor, and I can give you something I think might happen." Madden told John Dennis and Jerry Callahan, "I hear there's a rumor that there will be a more shocking development from the Second Mile Foundation. And hold on to your stomachs, boys. This is gross. I will use the only language I can. The Jerry Sandusky and Second Mile Foundation were pimping out young boys to rich donors." And that was being investigated by two prominent columnists, even as I speak. That's Mark Madden, who's a radio talk show host up in Pittsburgh. I guess that in Western Pennsylvania, this story's like hitting home even more than it is the rest of the country.
But it should.
You know, I see it's like...
It should. I didn't know that, but you see, that dovetails in. If you heard us earlier, that dovetails right in with what we were talking about. How it goes much deeper. It's not just a case of, oh, he might have done it to one or two or maybe three kids. This goes much deeper. Then who are the anonymous rich donors that bought little children for their sick little evil pleasure? And that goes to the fact that these are the judges, the lawyers, police chiefs, and at the core, you find out these people are Satanists. I didn't mean to cut you off, Jane. Go on. I just think it's a great point. I'm so glad you called in. Please continue.
No, I mean, I think you've hit it. What are we getting into here? They always say, "Oh, it's a lone nut. Oh, it's just one person." Well. Then there was the second person, the defensive coordinator McQueary. What a name! Who covered up for him, right? But at least reported it to Paterno, and then they try to make it seem like it's marginal, but it's not marginal. This is the ruling class. This is organized. This is conspiracy.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, Jane. If there's more than one person, then it makes it a conspiracy.
Right, and I guess by pointing that out, that makes us that dreaded segment of the population that seems to be marginalized the most by mainstream media, conspiracy theorists. Because we see organized patterns to this, because we go where the evidence leads us.
Well, this shows it's conspiracy fact. You know, that you can't refute this. You know, it's coming out. So what they're going to do is they're going to use him, Sandusky, as a sacrificial lamb. And of course, Paterno got sacrificed via his career and his job. And then again, he's been a coach for like 60 years, so maybe it was time to retire and let somebody else be the coach over there at Penn State. But
how convenient.
Yeah, right. But you know what I mean? Look, they're going to get sacrificed. And they should get fired because they knew what was going on, didn't say anything. But Sandusky will be the guy that gets sacrificed, and they don't do anything about. They won't go after. You know, if it comes out there that they were donors, I'm sure they won't find out who it was. I'm sure the trail will end there, and that'll be a rumor or something. That'll end. You know, just like. There was no John Doe number 2 in Oklahoma City, or, first at the Gabrielle Gifford shooting, there were 2 people. And then, for the first day, they were looking for the second gunman. And then all of a sudden there wasn't a second gunman. But let's not pay attention to that. Or the Fort Hood shootings, where they say it was just Nadal Hassan, or whatever his name is. But they don't mention the fact that there were numerous reports by people in the military saying, no, there were 3 shooters running around. Who are the other guys? Where'd they go? Why'd they confiscate all video from all military members on base, cell phones and everything? I agree.
This has to be the task of. This has to be the priority of alternative media, to not allow them to spin this as just one lone nut or one bad apple.
I agree.
Because as Mark Madden himself has pointed out, he says, "My opinion is that when Sandusky quit, everybody knew." Not just at Penn State. I think it was a very poorly kept secret about college football in general, and that is why he never coached in college football again and retired at the relatively young age of 55. That's young for a coach, certainly, unquote. That's our job, to talk about the Franklin cover-up, to talk about the gay prostitute ring at the White House around Craig Spence, and Jeff Guckert, a.k.a. Jeff Gannon, a.k.a. maybe
Jeff
Johnny
Gannon.
Gosh, for all we know.
Mm-hmm.
That's our job now, to shove this in people's faces, and especially to confront people like those Penn State students who ought to get their asses kicked for what they've done.
All right, calm down now, Jane. Calm down. No, I'm joking.
I agree.
Absolutely right.
I
You're
agree
absolutely
110%. Those students should be ashamed of themselves. And all their
Because I tell you
parents should find that if their kid that goes to Penn State was involved, you should call your kid back home and you should put some boot to rear end and do what you got to do and kick their little butts, because it's getting out of hand. Look what your kids are writing about that. Oh, it's okay. We love pedophiles. I wish Sandusky touched me, idiots. I mean, that's basically, you know what I mean? That's how I look at them. That's what I look at them as saying. We are Penn State. No, you are morons. Okay? It's a college. Stop getting sucked into this. It just irritates me, because I know that football.
they were chanting as they were rioting, Popeye. They were chanting, "This is what democracy looks
No,
like."
they weren't, were they? Oh.
Well,
Yeah,
by comparison...
That's true. Democracy means mob rule. So when you see a mob of 3,000 idiots flipping over a news van because one of their legends in football turns out to be a pedo, and then, one of the other legends of football turns out that he's a scumbag because he didn't really do anything about it, and all these people who pretend to be real men don't do anything when children are being hurt, and they're not real men, how do they take their frustration out? this is what democracy looks like. We are Penn State. Let's flip stuff over and break stuff because we're idiots. And
I do have to admire the fact they took that news van out, though. Forget the mainstream media.
I agree, but it's
I'm not condoning any crimes here.
It's like the other riots we talked about. What was it, hockey riots or whatever, a couple months ago? You know
for the stupid Stanley Cup, yeah.
They riot over a game, but they don't riot. Well, if you're first of all, I don't condone rioting, like Bob said. But if you're gonna get angry about something, why don't you get angry about like the real things that matter, like this kind of stuff? Why don't you get angry that they molest and rape little kids and they do all sorts of crazy, nasty stuff? No, instead you get mad because some wannabe football legend, he gets fired. Idiots. Just sheep all around. Jane, we're going to break. I want to thank you for calling in and making great points. Yeah, you hit the nail right in the head. And feel free to call in whenever you hear us on air again. So I appreciate you calling in. Thank you so much.
If they let us on air again.
Right. We have one more caller. We have Robert in L.A. Stay tuned. I'll get back to you. I promise, Robert, on the other side of this break. I have not forgotten about you. Listeners, we'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the final segment of Radio X. I'm your guest host, Popeye from Federal Jack, sitting in for Jimmy X. I want to thank JJ Inc. for hanging out today. I want to thank Jules for chilling out. I want to thank Bob. I want to thank all the callers that called in, and including Robert in LA, who I will be getting to momentarily. If anybody wants to listen to me later, I'll be on from 5 to 7 Eastern Standard Time tonight over on the Orion Talk Radio Network.
They're probably already tired of you, Popeye.
Probably. But if you feel like listening to my voice grate on your nerves any longer, feel free to go check me out. Name of my show's Down the Rabbit Hole. Again, thank you guys for listening. What am I doing? I'm going to be getting into a few things, the news and everything else. I'm going to be throwing my my ideas out in a few things. I did a veteran special on Friday, so I have a few things I want to touch on about that. So I got a full show prepared for everybody. But I want to get back to the call lines before we run out of time. I'm going to bring Robert from LA up because Robert's been sitting very patiently. Robert, you with me?
Hey, how's it going? I just wanted to say, respond to that guy who called earlier about, talking to your neighbors and things like that. He seems to be like an idiot because he says you have to talk to your neighbors, but then he doesn't want you at his house asking for food. So, I mean, which one is it? Are you going to help your neighbors out? Or
Robert, wait a second here. Wait a second. You're talking about me. I'm on the phone with you. And let's back up a second, okay?
No, it's the guy who called in earlier.
No, I'm pretty sure I made that point. That
no, he was talking about he's talking about the guy that was on before you came on. I can't remember his name. I think he was in Oklahoma or whatever. It might have been him, but it was one of the other callers.
I missed that. I apologize. I missed that. But Robert, I think we should be aware of that possibility. I mean, at some point, that there's going to come a point in time where if they're not prepared, and that's why I'm all about being proactive when it comes to that they may put you in that compromising position.
Well, the thing is, you're either going to help your neighbor or you're not. And don't act like you care about your neighbor and then warn them about fluoride in the water, there's this and that, but then you don't want them in your house.
But no, there's a distinction, because what happens is if, say, you've planned out that you have a year's supply worth of food, and you've tried to educate your neighbors and they ignore you, and then something happens and you have 15 of them going, hey, we want some of your food. Well, if you give away all your supply of food, now you don't have anything for yourself, and your plans, how you've already rationed your stuff out, is thrown off. The key is getting with them before something happens so that you can educate them and all come together and everybody can be prepared, and when something does happen, you won't have that problem, because that will create diversity when an incident happens and people don't have stuff. I've lived through it myself. We've had bad hurricanes here. And a couple years ago when Hurricane Wilma came through here, we had no power for 2 weeks. A lot of my friends busted my chops because I got preparations and everything ready. They were all laughing. They weren't laughing when we didn't have power for 2 weeks. Everybody wanted to come over to my house. And for the first day or so, I let a few people over, but then I had to tell them, look, you got to go out and get your own stuff. So the important thing is, I agree that I see your point. I understand and I see your point. But what I'm saying is, we were kind of talking about beforehand, so that it doesn't come to the fact that you're going to have people that, if they don't have food after a couple days, I think it's like a week, 5 or 7 days without food, and people will resort to cannibalism and stuff. So you want to have everybody in your community prepared, so you can have a strong little community that works together as a cohesive unit. But I do see your point. Go on.
Well, a community is a shared effort between a community of people. That's really what it is. Now, if your position is, hey, get your own stuff, I don't know how you get it, just somehow get out of my way. But don't come to my house asking me for stuff. But anyway, we have to alert each other and help each other out. It just seems to me to be schizophrenic position. It's either you help everyone, and if someone comes to your house and asks for something, because that's the reality of the situation. Not everyone's going to be prepared. Not everyone's going to be just like you. You have to be prepared to do the key thing, which is to be a moral human being. And that's just the way it is.
To what ends? To what end? And you can be moral and still have boundaries, Robert.
You have to be moral. To what end? I mean, that's
well. Here's the problem. If you're prepared and 100 people aren't, and you have enough stuff you have a wife and kids, let's say, right, and you have enough food for your wife and your kids, and you suddenly give all your, you start giving stuff away. All of a sudden, you turn around. Now your year's supply of food that would have fed your family. Wait, hold on. The year's supply that would have fed your family is now dwindled to like 6 months. Now you're going to have to face the reality of running out of food sooner, and it's going to create a problem for you.
Reality is if you live in a community of 100 people and you're the only one that has supplies, you failed as a human being to be part of a community. Because everyone's going to ravage you, kill you, and take your food.
But I have to disagree. What happens if everybody in the community say, do you believe that, do you believe in the New World Order and stuff like that? I just have to ask so I can pose this question I'm going to ask. Do you believe in the New World Order and stuff like that?
Do I believe that, as time goes by, there's going to be different forms of government, different ways?
No, I mean, do you believe in the conspiracy about what these elitists do and that kind of stuff? Do you believe in that?
Do I believe that people in power conspire to divide the world into their own piece, like a chess? Yeah, of course. I mean,
okay, cool. I needed that so I know so I can pose a question to you. All right. So say you live in a community, right? And you've gone out and you've done your best. You've given out DVDs. You've had screenings, and nobody in your community wants to believe what you have to say until all hell breaks loose. And then they come to you and they say, please help us. Please, we should have paid attention sooner. But again...
Are you supposed to say no? And then have them
you can help them, but there has to be a certain extent that you don't sacrifice yourself and your family because they didn't listen to you. Being a martyr doesn't help anybody.
You failed as a member of the community.
But how is it your failure because they are brain dead? That's what I'm saying.
They can't be brain dead. I mean, if your message is true and if your message is valid, anyone, if you persuade them, will heed your call. I mean, that's my experience, but and it's only my experience, so I can't really lay that on everyone else because it's only my experience. But I think it's a failure of that person who truly has a message of like some sort of warning. He failed to convince his community, and he will pay the price when these things. I mean, if you truly believe that there's going to be a famine, if you really truly believe every day of your life, then you would be convincing all your neighbors because when that famine does come, you're going to be a target because you have supplies. Does that make sense?
Well, of course it doesn't make sense. And first of all, anybody with half a brain would pack their stuff and move out. That would be their solution, so that they're not there.
But you're not a part of the community. Exactly. You just would leave and run away. And then
you wouldn't run away. You would go somewhere else where you could get and create a new community with people that are open-minded. Because there's one thing that a lot of people run into. They want to save everybody, and you can't. There are some people, honestly, dude, I've run into people that over time things change their mind, but a lot of people will not change their way of thinking until it's too late.
That's why then you have to make a decision.
Exactly.
Should I
I
stay
don't
in
consider
the
that
state?
running away. I consider that's more like if you tried everything and you've exhausted your efforts, then they really don't welcome you in their community anyway, and so you're not really a part of it to begin with. So you go find
Okay,
something.
they can make a decision at that point to leave and join a group of people who are more, who are more receptive.
Open-minded, maybe
and
receptive to
protect
this new
yourself.
information. I agree. We're running out of time, so I got to let you go because we got about a minute left. I appreciate you calling in, Robert, and I do. I see.
Just don't be a hypocrite. You're going to help, or you're not going to help, or get out of the way.
I agree. Lead, follow, or get the F out of the way. I agree. But I appreciate your view on things, and thanks for calling in, man. All right, Bob. Thank you for calling and hanging out.
What?
Jules, thank you for
All right.
hanging out. You've been kind of quiet. You want to get anything in here in the last 40 seconds, Jules? You want to say something really quick?
I don't know. I just think that the best thing to do is to prepare, and if no one else wants to listen, then deal with yourself. I'm sorry, but my community has kind of failed me.
Well, then, it's a shame. I understand everybody's point of view, but personally, I don't think that you should be feeding everybody and their mother. I think if we could, the best way to deal with the problem is be proactive about it and handle business before it happens. And that's what they're trying to prevent. That's why they call preppers nuts and kooks and everything else.
It's called personal responsibility.
Exactly. Everybody has to have personal responsibility. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Again, you can listen to me later on, 5 to 7 on the Orion Talk Radio Network. Thank you very much. See you soon.